guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to pop on here today and tell you the 7 things I did first when I found out that Charlotte was deaf. I did post a video last week that was about my feelings and emotions when we found out Charlotte was deaf, so I'm not going to touch on those too much. I'll link that video here and you guys can refer back there if you haven't seen that one yet. But this is more like the initial action steps that I took when we got the diagnosis. And I know everybody's story is very different and everybody takes a different path, but I do know that there are a lot of families that are in a very similar position to mine. So hopefully this will help you maybe navigate some first steps. So number 1, the very first thing that I did when I found out that Charlotte was deaf was call my family and my friends. And that's huge. And you would think that's a no-brainer, but I have talked to a lot of parents who are in a lot of denial when they first get the diagnosis, and that's totally normal. But to openly share that diagnosis, even if you're having a hard time processing it, is really, really important. The reason it's important is because you can't do this alone, and it is a lot to process. Somebody might actually have a little bit of insight into it in your family and friends that you didn't know about before. And just when you hear them tell you that they love you and they love your baby and they support whatever decision you're gonna make, and they ask you what can they do to help, it makes you feel so much better. And you can take a deep breath in the difficult time of processing, and you can kind of start to feel your load lighten. And when people offer to learn sign language, embrace that and help them, give them resources. I'll share a few here today. When people offer to help with your other little ones so you can make the other appointments that you need to after the diagnosis, take the help. Just the support and help is the biggest thing that got me over the hump in the very beginning when we found out Charlotte was deaf. The second thing that I did when I got home after I told my family and friends that Charlotte was deaf was go on YouTube and social media and the internet. And I know some people probably hate that advice, but that is honestly what I did, and it helped me so much because I had never met a deaf person before. I didn't know anything about deaf culture. I never heard of cochlear implants. So when I got on the internet and typed in, what do I do after I find out my child is deaf? I got a lot of great resources. And when I went on YouTube and looked up deaf child, I got to see these amazing, beautiful children thriving, learning the language of their choice, of their family's choice, and doing great. So that was huge for me. Instagram, I got to meet other moms like myself. I sent messages right away to anybody I saw who had hashtag cochlear implant, deaf kids rock, deaf baby. I sent messages to these moms just to find out what they did next, how they coped with it, how their kiddo's doing now. Any advice that I could possibly get, I was able to find through just connecting with other families through social media. I know people always frown upon Dr. Google, but honestly, we are in a very lucky time where we can pop on the internet and get a lot of resources and a lot of inspiration. So that was the second thing that I did, and it was very helpful. The third thing that I did after calling my family and friends and going on YouTube was signing up for mydeafchild.org. That's something that I found through an internet search that I was talking about earlier. And My Deaf Child is run by Rachel Coleman, who is just such an amazing mother in the deaf community. She has a deaf daughter, and you might have actually heard of her through Signing Time, which is a really awesome kids ASL learning video series. And she started mydeafchild.org, which is such an amazing place to go to get resources about raising a deaf child. They actually have a free ASL course for parents of kids who are 36 months and under who are deaf in the United States. All I had to do was submit some paperwork, and I was able to enroll in that course for free, which was super helpful. I'm just so appreciative of everything Rachel has done in the community, and just having that site where it was a one-stop shop for learning what would be helpful as we move forward with our diagnosis with Charly. The fourth thing that I did was make sure that she was signed up for early intervention. And I can't speak about early intervention in different states or in different countries, but in Virginia, we have a really great early intervention program. I honestly think somebody might have called me the week that we got the diagnosis before I ever had to reach out to them. We had a coordinator at our house within a week doing her IEP, finding out what her needs were, what our desires were for her, and where we needed to go from there. Because of early intervention, we are able to get free speech therapy in the house once a week. It depends on what your child needs, but that's what Charly gets. We have a really wonderful speech therapist, and she comes right to the house, so it's the perfect environment, especially you have a new baby, you're trying to juggle everything, maybe multiple kids and a new diagnosis, and so it just made it a really comfortable place for us to learn about it and for her to develop into where she is at now. So that is the absolute best place to start locally in your community. And speaking of locally in the community, the next thing that I did, number 5 on my list, is joining a support group for other families with deaf children. So here in Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads, we have Families to Families, which is awesome. It's a group that meets once a week, and it's other parents of deaf children and other deaf adults. Some of them sign, some of them have cochlear implants and do speech. It's a really good variety, which was perfect for me to see because, again, I had never met a deaf person in person until my first Families to Families meeting, and it was awesome. Like, I think I stood up and tried my best to sign that it was the best thing that I had done since finding out Charlotte was deaf. We were able to finally be in a room with other children like her, other adults who were thriving, who were deaf. We were able to see ASL in person, which is just such a beautiful language. And we were able to see cochlear implants in person. So it was just a great way to expose ourselves to the deaf community in the beginning, and a really great place to connect with other family members in a similar spot. The 6th thing that I did was start to learn ASL. And American Sign Language, it's so beautiful and I love learning. I'm not very good at it yet, and I've been practicing a lot, but I don't have that many people to sign with on a day-to-day basis here. But it's a personal choice. There's so many options when you find out your kiddo is deaf. You can do just ASL for language, you can get cochlear implants and just do speech. And you could do cued speech. I mean, there's so many, lip reading, there's a lot of options. What we decided to do was total communication, which is cochlear implants with a focus on verbal speech, but we're also doing ASL as well. That's personally what we wanted for our family. Like I always say, you'll hear me say it a million times, as long as you're giving your child love and language, you're doing a great job. You can't make a wrong choice. You have to do what works for your family. But knowing that we wanted to learn sign language, I didn't know where to start. mydeafchild.org, I signed up for their classes. That was really great. Actually, my number 1 most favorite place for me and the way that I learn to learn sign language is lifeprint.com, and Bill Vikers is the professor who teaches it on there. It's completely free. Anybody can go to the website or the YouTube channel, and I'll link that here, and learn ASL. It's amazing. Just the way that he teaches is very comfortable for me and how I process information in language. So it's been my favorite way to learn. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Rachel Coleman, who started mydeafchild.org, also has a video series called Signing Time, and it's the cutest little kids signing show. My kids love it, and I actually learned most of my sign in the beginning watching Signing Time, just because the way that they teach a child is really easy for an adult to learn as well. And it's just a really cute series, and the songs are really catchy, and my kids love it, and it's a great series to follow. And finally, the last step that I'll talk about that I did was meeting with an audiologist and an ENT to discuss our options further. So it's one thing to have a good support system, it's one thing to have Dr. Google, but the next really important step, especially if you are looking into cochlear implants or having amplification in hearing aids, is to go see a doctor. Seeing the audiologist, I had a lot of questions that it was a lot easier to get a human response from and hear other stories that the audiologist had experience with, rather than searching Google for hours. That was really helpful. And then meeting with the ENT and learning about cochlear implants, what the surgery process would be like, what the time frame would be like, what the next steps were, what appointments we were looking at, and how to plan those out in a good time frame, made processing the information and what our journey looked like a lot easier and made it more realistic. I could see the path, I could see what we wanted to do, the light was at the end of the tunnel as far as the surgery and the steps to get there. So it was a really, really important step. And You're gonna have a lot of doctor's appointments and audiologist appointments, so pick a really great one that you're comfortable with, that you're comfortable asking questions to. You can do a lot of research in finding a really, really great ENT and audiologist near you. We got really lucky with CHKD and the doctors and care that we have there. So those are the 7 things that I did. It's nothing groundbreaking, but I hope it gave you a few resources to check out and just kind of navigate a few steps now that you have an awesome new deaf baby, or as you navigate this journey. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my videos. Please subscribe, especially if you have deaf kiddo. Please comment below and tell me your story. Let's connect. Find me on Instagram. I'm at The Blushing Bluebird. I love connecting and meeting other deaf mamas, deaf daddies and mamas of deaf children, however you want to say it. And I just look forward to what the future has in store for all of us. All right, bye.